My cherished heart, come a little closer. Not because there is something you need to fix before you arrive. Not because you must prepare a speech or compose yourself into something more presentable than what you already are. Draw near exactly as you are, with all the rough edges and the half-answered questions, and the quiet ache that has been living in your chest for longer than you have told anyone. Step into this warmth because this is home, because you were made for nearness, not distance, because the table has always had a place set with your name, and right now the chair is still warm and the door is still open and the light has not gone out. This is not a new invitation. This is the same invitation that has been standing since before you were born, the one that has been waiting through every season in which you walked away from it, the one I have never once retracted. Come closer. What I am about to tell you about yourself, and about us, and about the life that is still in front of you requires you to be near enough to hear the full tenderness in my voice, not at a distance where my words reach you muffled and second-hand. Here, right here, where the warmth of my presence can reach the coldest corners of your heart. You are loved before you ever learn to ask. Let that settle for a moment. Let it reach past the surface of your understanding and sink into the place where the hard things live, the place where the old questions still echo, the place where you have stored every piece of evidence that seemed to suggest you were not quite enough, not quite worthy, not quite deserving of the kind of love that holds rather than leaves. Because that is the place I want to speak to first, before we go anywhere else together. Before I say anything about your future or your purpose or the plans I have been quietly preparing, I want to establish something foundational, something that every other truth I will ever speak to you rests upon. I loved you before you became, before your name was spoken over your body, before your lungs drew their first breath of the world's air, before you had done a single thing that anyone could point to as a reason. My love for you did not begin with your performance. It did not begin with your obedience. It did not begin with your faith or your prayers or your attempts to be good enough to deserve what you were hoping I might give. It began in *me*. It originates in me, and what originates in me cannot be extinguished by anything that originates in you. The table in this house has been set since before you were born. Think about what that means. A table set in advance is a table set by someone who was expecting you, not hoping you might show up, not waiting to see whether you would eventually decide to come, expecting you, knowing you are coming, planning the meal around your arrival before your arrival was certain in anyone else's eyes. There is an intimacy in that kind of preparation that I need you to feel, not just know abstractly, but feel in the actual fabric of your body. The warmth that moves through a person when they realize they were anticipated rather than tolerated, desired rather than merely accommodated. When you walk into a home and the table is already set and there is a specific chair pulled out for you and the food is warm because someone knew what time you would arrive, you do not walk through that door feeling like a burden. You walk through it feeling claimed known home in the most specific possible way. That is what you are in this house, not a guest who must earn their keep, not a stranger who was reluctantly given a temporary bed, a member of the family with a place at the table that carries your name in the grain of the wood, permanent and particular and yours. I want to speak to you about the longing you carry, the one you rarely name out loud because naming it makes it feel more painful at present, more vulnerable, more exposed than the careful arrangements you have built to manage it. The longing to be truly known not the surface version of yourself that you offer the world, the one assembled from what you have learned people respond well to, and what you have learned to hide for the sake of social peace. The deeper version, the one that holds your actual fears and your actual hopes and the very specific texture of your inner life. The things that delight you for reasons you could not fully explain, and the things that wound you for reasons you have never found the right words to describe. That longing is not weakness. It is the most human thing about you. It is evidence of how you were made, because you were made in the image of a God who is known fully and loves fully, and whose entire disposition toward his children is one of absolute, unhurried, unguarded intimacy. The longing you carry is not an accident. It is an echo of an original condition, a kind of spiritual memory of the closeness you were designed for. And what you have been longing for all this time, I have been holding out to you. There is something I want you to understand about what it means to be known by me, because I think the word known asterisk can feel abstract when it comes from divine lips. Let me make it concrete. I know what you were thinking at 4 in the afternoon on the hardest day of your recent memory. I know the exact combination of small frustrations that built throughout that morning, until the weight of them tipped over into something that surprised you with its intensity. I know the specific way your face changes when you are trying not to let your emotions show in a room full of people who would not understand. I know the song that catches you off guard and pulls something open in your chest before you have a chance to protect yourself from what it brings up. I know the private way you celebrate small victories when no one is watching, the quiet satisfaction you allow yourself when something you worked hard at finally comes together, the way you smile to yourself in a moment that belongs only to you. I know the particular quality of your 3 a.m. silence, the texture of the thoughts that come in that hour, the specific fears that visit you when the rest of the world is sleeping and the usual distractions have gone quiet, and there is nothing left between you and the full weight of what you are carrying. None of that is new information to me. None of it has ever been. And knowing all of it, I have never once been tempted to love you less. The way I see you is not the way a supervisor reviews a performance. There is no clipboard in my hands, no checklist of requirements you need to meet to remain in good standing. The way I look at you is the way a parent looks at a child who has just walked through the door after a long absence. You study their face, not to assess how well they have done, but simply because you missed them. Because the particular arrangement of their features is the most familiar and beloved thing in your world. Because the relief of having them back in the room where you can see them is so profound that for a moment, nothing else matters at all. That is the quality of attention I bring to you, not asterisk evaluating asterisk, beholding asterisk. There is a difference between a person who looks at you to measure and a person who looks at you to cherish asterisk. I am the second kind, and the quality of being cherished truly, completely, with no hidden agenda and no conditional clause, is one of the things your soul has been starving for, and that I am placing on the table between us right now. You were loved before you ever learned to ask. Here is what I want you to understand about value. Not the value the world assigns you, which fluctuates with your productivity and your appearance and your usefulness to whatever the current economy demands. Not the value you assign yourself, which tends to rise and fall with your recent performance and the comparisons you cannot seem to stop making between where you are and where you think you should be. The value asterisk I placed in you when I designed you, the value that belongs to you the same way your fingerprint belongs to you, not earned, not improved by effort, not diminished by failure, simply asterisk yours by the original act of creation. You are not valuable because you have achieved something. You are not valuable because you are better than someone else at something. You are not valuable because your contribution has been recently recognized or your effort has been recently rewarded. You are valuable because I made you asterisk, and I do not make things without intention, and I do not create without care, and everything that comes from my hands carries the full weight of my love in its very structure. Consider what happens in a household when a child is born. Before that child has accomplished a single thing, before they have spoken their first word or taken their first step or demonstrated any quality of character that might justify the love being poured over them, the love is already fully present, already complete, already operating at the highest level it will ever reach. Because a parent's love for a new child is not a beginning amount that grows with the child's achievement. It is the full asterisk amount, immediate and overwhelming, arriving before any reason for it has been established. The child does not earn their place in that house. The child's place in that house is the reason the house exists. That is the architecture of how I love you. Not love that began small and grew as you demonstrated worthiness. Love that arrived whole and complete before you had any way to deserve it, and that has remained whole and complete through every season since, including the ones where your behavior would have provided anyone else with excellent reasons to retract it. The love I have for you is not a response to who you have been. It is a statement about who I am, and who I am does not change. The world has been teaching you a different kind of arithmetic. The arithmetic that says worth equals contribution. That says your place in the room is secure only as long as you are adding something to it. That says you need to stay impressive, stay useful, stay relevant, or risk discovering that the warmth you felt was conditional on your continued performance. This arithmetic is in the air you breathe. It is in the way workplaces function and social circles operate, and even in the dynamics of some families. And when you have been absorbing this arithmetic for long enough, it begins to rewrite the way you approach everything, including this relationship with me. You begin to approach my presence the way you approach a job review, half hopping for recognition and half bracing for correction. You begin to offer me your best moments and hide the worst ones, as if an honest accounting of who you actually are would jeopardize the standing you have here. But the standing you have here was never dependent on your best moments. It was established before your first moment. And nothing that has happened in any moment since has altered its foundation by a single degree. There are days when you feel that the entire universe is indifferent to your struggle. The days when you have been carrying something heavy for so long that your arms are shaking with the effort, and no one seems to notice the weight, and no one seems to see how close you are to dropping it. The days when you look at your situation honestly, and the gap between where you are and where you need to be seems vast, and the resources available to close the gap seem thin, and the energy required to keep going seems to have run out entirely. Those are the days I draw especially close. Not because your condition was bad enough to finally get my attention, not because the threshold of your suffering crossed some invisible line that activated my concern, but because a child of mine in that level of distress calls out something very specific in my nature as a father, something deep and immediate and without conditions, the instinct to move toward rather than away from, to hold rather than observe from a safe distance, to speak into the darkness rather than wait for the light to return before entering. I hear you on the days you cannot find the words, the sounds that escape you when you are alone and the pressure becomes momentarily unbearable, the sighs that carry more honest information about your condition than any sentence you have ever managed to form, the moments of complete stillness when even the effort of articulating what you feel seems beyond what your depleted spirit can manage. Those reach me with perfect clarity, every single one, and not one of them has ever fallen to the ground without touching me first. When you cry out without words, you are not communicating less effectively. You are communicating at the deepest level language can actually reach, the level beneath vocabulary and grammar and the constructed sentences we offer each other in social situations, the raw signal of a soul that is real and present and genuinely in need. That signal finds me every time, and every time it does something in me, not the neutral acknowledgement of a deity receiving data from a monitoring system, something that moves, something that rises something that recognizes itself in the ache of a child and cannot remain unmoved. Because your struggle matters to me in a way that is not institutional or obligatory, not the way a judge cares about a case or an administrator cares about a file, the way a parent cares about the specific child sitting across from them at the kitchen table with their shoulders slumped and their eyes not quite meeting yours, and a quality to their silence that tells you something is very wrong, even before a single word is spoken. That is how I care about what you are going through, with the full weight of a love that has your history in it, that has been present for every single experience that brought you to this particular moment of needing to be held. That knows not just what you are feeling right now, but why you are feeling it at the deepest structural level. Because I was there for everything that built the person who is now sitting in this much need of tenderness. Something I want to tell you about the way I pay attention. My attention to your life is not divided between you and the billions of other people I am simultaneously holding. This is one of the things that seems logically impossible until you understand something about the nature of my being. When I am with you, I am entirely with you, not 90% present while the remaining 10% handles other matters. Completely present. The way a parent in the right kind of home can make each child feel not like one of several concerns, but like the only concern. Not because the others do not matter, but because love has this quality of fullness that does not diminish when it is given to more than one person. A candle does not give less light to the second flame it kindles than it gave to the first. The light is not divided, it is reproduced. My attention is like that, and the attention I am giving to the specific details of your life right now, the ones that feel too small to bring before a God who sustains galaxies, is not residual or second-hand. It is full asterisk. It is focused. It is personal in the most thorough sense of that word, meaning it is shaped specifically around the person you are and what you specifically need and the exact circumstances of what you are specifically facing. I know about the small thing that has been bothering you that you have not told anyone about because it seemed too small to matter. It matters to me. I know about the hope you have been afraid to speak out loud because speaking it would make it too real, and you are not sure you can bear the disappointment if it does not come true. I have been tending that hope in my hands. And I know about the gratitude you carry quietly for things you have received that you sense came from somewhere beyond the visible, even on the days when you could not quite bring yourself to acknowledge the source. Let me say something about courage, because I know you have been asking for it. I know there are situations in your life right now that require a kind of bravery that you are not sure you have. Conversations you need to have but keep postponing, because the fear of the response paralyzes you. Decisions you know need to be made, but that require stepping onto what feels like very thin ice, the kind where you cannot be sure the ground will hold your weight until you have already committed your full weight to it. Directions you feel drawn toward, but that seem to demand more certainty than you currently possess. And the gap between where your faith actually is and where you feel it needs to be in order to move seems too large to cross. The courage I am offering you is not the absence of fear. That would make courage unnecessary. What I am offering is the capacity to move in the presence of fear, to take the step even when the step is terrifying, to open the mouth even when the voice shakes, to reach toward what is needed even when every experience that has ended badly before is whispering its reasons against trying again. This kind of courage does not come from you having convinced yourself that everything will be fine. It comes from something older and more reliable than certainty about outcomes. It comes from knowing who walks beside you. When the road ahead is unclear and the territory is unfamiliar, and the confidence you were hoping to feel before moving has not arrived yet. The question is not whether the ground is guaranteed. The question is whether you know who laid it. And I laid it. Every inch of what is ahead of you was placed there by the same hands that placed the stars, with the same precision, with the same care, with the specific knowledge of your weight and your gait, and exactly what kind of surface your particular feet need in this particular season. You are loved before you ever learn to ask. Walk toward what I am calling you to with that knowledge underneath your feet, not as a performance of confidence you do not feel, not as a spiritual exercise in pretending doubt does not exist, but as the choice of someone who has decided that the source of their confidence is not their own feelings about the situation, but the character of the one who is already on the other side of it, waiting. There is a specific kind of fear I want to address, because it has been quieter than the big fears but more persistent in its effect. The fear of getting it wrong. The fear that the direction you feel pulled toward might be your own wishful thinking rather than my actual leading, and that following it and finding yourself in another dead end would be more than your faith could survive at this point. This fear speaks most loudly in the moments just before a decision needs to be made, when the need for certainty is most acute and the available evidence seems thinnest, and it has kept you standing at the edge of things that were actually for you, prevented you from stepping into rooms that were waiting for your particular presence, held you back from extending your hand towards something good because the memory of when extending your hand led to disappointment was louder than the pull toward what was in front of you. What I want you to know about that fear is this: you do not have to have perfect clarity before you move. Clarity is often not available in advance. Clarity is frequently a gift that arrives in the moving, not before it. A person who waits in the doorway until they have complete certainty about every element of what lies on the other side will stand in the doorway for a very long time, because the certainty they are waiting for is the kind that only comes from having already crossed the threshold. The faith I am asking of you is not the faith of someone who can see the whole road stretching out clearly ahead. It is the faith of someone who can see the next step, just the next step, and knows enough about the one who cleared the path to take it. I am not asking you to leap blindly into the unknown. I am asking you to step, with your eyes open, toward the one who already knows where you are going and has already been there preparing it for your arrival. Your purpose in this life is not a mystery withheld from you until you have passed some qualifying examination. The shape of what you are made for has been visible in you since the beginning, in the things that light you up, and the things that break your heart, and the specific ways you are moved to act when someone near you is in need. The qualities I placed in you are not decorative. They are functional. They are equipment for a specific kind of work in a specific kind of world, and the work has been waiting for the worker to be ready, and the worker has been getting ready through every experience that has felt like delay. The season of preparation has not been wasted time. It has been the most important investment of the entire enterprise. What is coming requires exactly the person you have become through the process that has felt from the inside like nothing more than difficulty and loss, and a gradual erosion of several versions of yourself that did not survive the testing. I want to talk about the things you have said to yourself in the quiet, the things you would never say to another person, but that play in your own mind with a consistency that has slowly shaped the way you see yourself. The voice that calls you inadequate when someone else seems to achieve what you have been working toward without apparently trying as hard. The voice that surfaces in the gap between what you have accomplished and what you believe you should have accomplished by now. The one that measures you against an internal standard that shifts constantly so that you can never actually reach it. The voice that turns ordinary setbacks into evidence of fundamental deficiency. The voice that says the difficulties you have experienced were somehow deserved, that they are the natural result of not being quite right, not being quite enough, not quite qualifying for the kind of life you actually want. That voice is not telling you the truth. Not a single word of what it has been saying to you is accurate. And I need you to start treating its claims the way a careful person treats the claims of a source that has a consistent record of being wrong. Not with anger, not with desperate attempts to argue yourself out of every individual lie, but with the quiet certainty of someone who has access to a more reliable source of information about themselves. And the information have about you is this: you are not deficient. You are not fundamentally flawed in a way that disqualifies you from belonging here. You are not at the bottom of some invisible ranking of people who deserve good things. You are asterisk mine asterisk. And being mine means you carry inside you something that every dismissive voice and every discouraging experience and every difficult season has asterisk failed to touch, which is the original signature of your Creator, the specific intention that I wrote into your existence before you could be told what to think about yourself. I want to talk to you about the people in your household and the relationships inside your walls, because what I am doing in you does not stop at your skin. The love I am releasing into your life is meant to move asterisk through asterisk you and into the rooms where the people you care about are living. Some of those people are struggling in ways you can see. Others are struggling in ways they have learned to hide so well that you have almost stopped looking beneath the surface of how they present themselves. Still, others have wandered into places that have taken them far from anything that resembles peace. And the watching of that wandering has cost you a grief that you carry with a tenderness that sometimes surprises even you. I see every one of those relationships. I know the specific ache of loving someone who is not in a place to receive what you want to give them. I know the particular weight of hopping for a change in someone you love and watching the change not come on the timeline you needed it to come. I know what it costs to keep the welcome ready for a person who has not yet decided to come home. Keep the welcome ready. Do not grow cold in your heart toward the ones I am still working on in the places you cannot see. What I am doing in a human life does not always become visible on a schedule that allows the people who love that person to remain comfortable. Some of the deepest work happens in hidden places, over very long periods, before anything that looks like change appears on the surface. The seed does not announce itself before the first shoot breaks the soil, but the work has been happening in the dark all along. And what is about to break through in the people you have been praying over is the result of a process that was in motion before you had words to pray. Love them, hold the door open. Let your own transformation be the most powerful argument for what becomes possible when a person stops running from their own heart and comes home to the one who made it. The painful parts of your history are not the definition of who you are. They are part of the material I have been working with in the ongoing process of shaping you into the person your purpose requires. There is a specific kind of depth that only comes from having been through difficulty. Not a theoretical depth, not the borrowed wisdom of someone who read about suffering in a book, but the actual, earned, lived understanding that belongs only to a person who has been in the middle of something genuinely hard and found that they did not disappear. That kind of depth cannot be manufactured by any comfortable path. It can only be grown in the soil of real experience. And you have been growing it, sometimes without realizing it, sometimes against your will, sometimes in circumstances that felt far more like abandonment than cultivation. But the growth was real. The depth is real. And what it has produced in you is something that has not yet been fully recognized, either by you or by the world around you, but that I have been watching develop with the steady attention of a craftsman who understands that the most important part of the work happens in the stages before the finished form is visible. Let me speak to the part of you that is tired, not the ordinary tiredness that sleep addresses, the tiredness that goes deeper than the body, the weariness of a soul that has been performing rather than resting, maintaining appearances rather than living from an interior that is genuinely at peace, managing the gap between what you present and what you actually feel with a skill that has cost you enormous amounts of invisible energy over a very long period of time. That kind of tiredness cannot be fixed by sleep, because the thing that is worn out is not your muscles or your eyes, but the machinery of self-presentation itself. The constant work of being someone the world can accept rather than simply being the person you actually are. The exhaustion of people who are always slightly performing, always slightly adjusting themselves to fit whatever the room requires, always doing the small interior calculus of figuring out what version of themselves is safest to offer in this particular moment, is a very specific kind of exhaustion, and I want to speak directly to it. The relief you are looking for is not rest in the conventional sense. It is permission asterisk, permission to stop performing, permission to exist in my presence, and in the presence of a handful of trusted people in your life, as the actual, unedited version of yourself. The one with the unresolved questions and the inconsistent faith and the days when you are genuinely not fine, and the specific struggles you have not told anyone about because you were afraid of what they would think. That version of you, the real asterisk one, is not less welcome here than the composed version you usually bring. It is more asterisk welcome. The composed version, the one that has everything reasonably together, does not need what I am offering in quite the same way. The real version, the one that is genuinely in need and genuinely uncertain, and genuinely carrying more than it can manage alone, that asterisk version is exactly who I built this house for. Think about what it means to belong somewhere, really belong in the deepest sense, not to be tolerated or accommodated or kept around because removing you would cause more inconvenience than your presence does. To belong, to be the kind of presence in a place that the place feels more itself because you are in it. To have a role in a story that the story needs you to fill. To be expected and welcomed in a given space that is genuinely yours, rather than borrowed or provisional. That is what you are in my family. Not a temporary resident waiting for permanent status. Not a probationary member whose membership is subject to review based on ongoing performance. A child with a child's rights and a child's security and a child's unconditional access to everything the parent holds. The door of this house does not have a lock that requires your goodness as a key. It opens from the inside, because the family already living here knows your face and has been listening for your footsteps. There was a moment I want you to remember, a moment in your story, and you know which one it is, when you had reached the furthest point from everything that was good, the deepest pit you have ever found yourself in, surrounded by the consequences of choices made in fear or in hunger or in the desperate confusion of someone who had lost the thread of where they were supposed to be going. In that moment, when you were alone with the weight of everything that had accumulated, when the silence around you felt less like peace and more like the absence of any voice that cared whether you made it, something happened that you may have forgotten or may have minimized in the years since. You said my name. Maybe not deliberately, maybe not in the form of a careful prayer. Maybe it came out more like a gasp than a declaration, more like the involuntary cry of someone who has lost their footing than the composed appeal of someone approaching a throne with confidence. But you said my name. And I moved toward you like someone who had been watching for exactly that moment, who had been close enough all along that no distance needed to be covered, who received that one imperfect sound from you and recognized it for exactly what it was, which was not weakness, but the beginning of asterisk coming home. Home. That word has a particular weight for some of you that goes beyond the physical structure of walls and roofs. For those of you whose experience of home in this world has included pain rather than shelter, conflict rather than safety, rejection rather than belonging, the word itself may carry more grief than warmth. For those of you who have spent years making peace with the fact that the kind of home you needed was the kind you never had, the invitation into my home requires a kind of trust that goes deeper than agreement with an idea. It requires actually believing, at the level of your most guarded interior spaces, that a place of genuine safety exists and that you are genuinely welcome in it. That belief may take time to settle. It may arrive in layers rather than all at once, and that is acceptable. I am not asking you to perform certainty you have not yet arrived at. I am asking you to take asterisk one step in the direction of the warmth, because the moment you take that step, you will discover that the distance between where you are and the door was much smaller than the fear made it appear. There are things that have been taken from you that were never yours to lose, peace that was disrupted by circumstances outside your control, joy that was interrupted before it had time to fully establish itself, confidence that was eroded by experiences that were neither fair nor deserved. Relationships that carried genuine warmth but ended in ways that left a wound you are still carefully managing even now, making sure not to press on it too hard, keeping your movements in certain emotional directions slow and deliberate so as not to disturb what has not yet fully healed beneath the surface. These losses are real. I do not intend to minimize them or ask you to pretend they did not cost you what they cost you. The accounting of what was taken from you is accurate, and I have not lost track of a single entry in it. But I want you to understand something about the nature of what I restore. When I restore something that was taken, I do not simply return what was lost in its original form. What was taken from you as a young person and what I restore to you as a mature person will not look exactly the same, because the person receiving it is not the same person who lost it. And the restored version is always shaped to fit the person you have become through the years in between. The innocence you lost cannot come back in its original naive form, but what comes back in its place is something richer, a trust that has been tested and has chosen, with full knowledge of the possibility of loss, to trust anyway. The courage that was frightened out of you in a difficult season cannot return as simple fearlessness. But what it becomes is something far more powerful. The courage of a person who knows exactly what they are afraid of and moves toward it anyway because they have decided that what is on the other side of the fear is worth the cost of crossing through it. What I restore to you is never a lesser version of what was taken. It is always, when I am the one doing the restoring, a more mature, more deeply rooted, more durable version than what the original was. I am not angry with you. Not for the questions that have felt too large to ask. Not for the seasons when the distance between us grew because the pain made proximity feel impossible. Not for the times when you ran toward something else, something that promised what I was offering in a more immediately available form, only to find that it took more than it gave and left you more depleted than you were before you reached for it. I understand why you reached for it. Hunger does not wait for the ideal meal. Thirst does not hold out for the purest water. When someone is in enough need for long enough, they reach for whatever is within arm's length. And sometimes what is within arm's length is something that will hurt them. I know that. I knew it when you reached, and it did not change a single detail of how I feel about you. Not because I am indifferent to the consequences of your choices, but because I am far more interested in the person making them than in the record of the choices themselves. The record matters, but it is not the whole story, and I am the author of the whole story. Something I want to name about tenderness, because tenderness is one of the most misunderstood qualities that exists in a culture that prizes strength and efficiency and the appearance of having it together. Tenderness can be mistaken for softness, for a kind of vulnerability that wise people learn to protect themselves against. But tenderness is not the absence of strength. It is the evidence of strength that is secure enough not to need armor. A person can only afford to be tender when they are not afraid of what the tenderness will cost them, not afraid that if they open up it will be used against them, not afraid that if they reveal what actually matters to them, they will make themselves a target. Tenderness in its true form belongs to the ones who have arrived at a place where they no longer need to protect themselves from the possibility of pain, because they have discovered something about themselves that cannot be damaged, regardless of what happens in the external world. When I approach you with tenderness, I am not being careful with you because I am delicate. I am being tender because I have chosen to bring the full force of what I am into an interaction with the full reality of who you are. And I want that interaction to feel safe enough for you to stay present in it, rather than retracting into the protective posture that difficult experiences have taught you to assume. My tenderness toward you is not pity. Pity looks down at its object from a position of superiority and offers help from a height. What I feel toward you is something that moves on the same level, that comes alongside rather than stooping over, that recognizes something of itself in what it is reaching toward. When I see you in your most unguarded moments, the ones where you have stopped performing and the real condition of your heart is visible, the movement I feel is not toward intervention as a problem to be managed. It is toward closeness. The way a parent moves toward the child who has finally stopped pretending they are fine and allowed their face to show the truth of what they are feeling. And the parent does not fix and manage and strategize. The parent simply moves closer and opens their arms and lets the child fall into them without saying a single word. Because sometimes what is needed is not explanation but presence asterisk. And presence, full and unhurried and unconditional, is what I am offering you right now. Let me speak now about the things I see in you that you have stopped being able to see in yourself. The specific qualities that make you asterisk irreplaceable. Not in the abstract sense that every life is theoretically valuable, but in the very concrete sense that there are things only you can do, ways only you can reach people, particular forms of understanding and care and perception that belong specifically to your design, and that the world around you genuinely needs. The way you notice the person in the room who is struggling to hide something. The capacity you have to sit with someone in their pain without rushing them toward resolution. The specific quality of the questions you ask that make people feel seen rather than interviewed. The creative instinct that generates solutions from an angle no one else considered. These are not accidents. They are not random distributions of pleasant traits. They are the asterisk-specific equipment for a specific assignment. And the assignment is real, and the world is waiting for it. And I have been preparing you for it through every experience you have had, including the ones that felt like nothing more than damage. You are not too late. Whatever the voice in your head has been saying about the time you have wasted, and the opportunities you have missed, and the version of your life you are supposed to have by now, but do not. Let me tell you plainly that I do not operate on the schedule that voice is holding you to. My timing is not your timeline. The plan I wrote over your life was never dependent on you arriving at each stage by a particular age or within a particular window that you either caught or missed forever. The plan is alive. It adjusts. It finds new routes through terrain that seem to have closed off. It is not a rigid blueprint that becomes irrelevant the moment a single element arrives out of sequence. It is a living, breathing, responsive design, held in the hands of a God who turns detours into destinations and uses even the wrong turns to develop the quality of navigation you will need for the road ahead. I want to speak to you about something that has been quietly present in your life, even in the difficult seasons. Something so consistent and so woven into the ordinary texture of your days that you may have stopped registering it as remarkable. Think carefully about the evidence of my nearness that has appeared not in dramatic moments of obvious intervention, but in the small, uncalculated kindnesses that arrived precisely when they were most needed. The phone call from someone who had no particular reason to think of you, but was thinking of you on exactly the day when the isolation was worst. The unexpected encouragement from a direction you were not anticipating that arrived on a day when you were considering giving up on the thing you had been working toward. The moment of unexpected peace that settled over you in the middle of a situation that had every reason to produce anxiety and no obvious reason to produce calm. The small thing that made you laugh when laughter felt genuinely beyond reach. These are not random distributions of good fortune scattered across a life by chance. These are evidence of someone who knows your address in the most specific possible sense, who knows the timing of your needs with the precision of someone who never has to guess at what is required, because I designed you, and I know your maintenance schedule better than you do. The infrastructure of my care in your life is not only visible in the large moments. It is built into the everyday architecture of how your days have held together at all. The reasons you have not gone under in the seasons when going under seemed like the more likely outcome. The way things have had a tendency to come together at the last possible moment. In ways that were close enough to miraculous that you briefly let yourself wonder, before explaining it away with something more comfortable than the acknowledgement that you are being looked after. I am inviting you to stop explaining it away. I am inviting you to look at the accumulated evidence of the small mercies and the precise timings and the moments of inexplicable grace, and allow yourself to reach the conclusion that the evidence actually supports, which is that you have been held specifically and consistently by someone who has never once lost track of what you needed or when you needed it. The season of feeling overlooked is ending. The season of invisible labor, the kind where you pour effort into things that produce no visible result and no external recognition, and no evidence that what you are doing is making any difference to anyone. That season has been building something in you that the season of recognition will require. Not everyone who receives a large platform was prepared for it. Not everyone who arrives at the place of visible influence carries the interior strength to sustain it. But what has been built in you during the years of quiet, difficult, unwitnessed faithfulness is the foundation that can bear the weight of what is coming. The obscure seasons are rarely wasted. They are usually the most load-bearing seasons in the entire structure of a life. The ones that determine whether the visible accomplishments that come later will stand or collapse under their own weight. I want to address something directly that some of you have been carrying with a weight entirely disproportionate to what it actually deserves. The shame over the ways you wandered. The accumulated record of moments when you turned away from what was good and toward what was not. When the hunger was strong enough that you stopped asking where the food was coming from and simply ate. When the loneliness was deep enough that you accepted a form of company that left you more isolated than you were before. The choices that seemed to promise something they could not deliver, and that cost you more than you had budgeted for, and that left marks you are still carrying with an intensity that suggests you have not yet understood something critical about how I handle the records of the people I love. The record of those choices is not what I hold against you. The record of those choices is what I hold your hand through. There is a difference so profound between those two postures that it changes the entire character of your relationship with me, depending on which one you believe I am in. A God who holds your failures against you. A God you approach with dread, carefully preparing the list of what you have done right recently as an offering that might soften the reception. A God who holds your hand through the record of your failures. A God you can run toward in the moments of your deepest need, rather than running away. I need you to know which one I am. I am the second kind. The record of your wandering is in my hands, yes, but not as evidence to be used against you. As the map of where you have been, that tells me everything I need to know about where you need to be brought now. The places you went that hurt you are the places I am now healing. The choices that produced shame are being transformed in my hands into the raw material of the testimony that will reach other people who made the same choices and believed, as you once believed, that they were therefore beyond the reach of what I offer. Come home. That is the simplest form of the invitation I have been extending since the beginning of this conversation, and since long before this conversation, and since before you could remember. Come back to the place where you are known without having to explain yourself, welcomed without having to justify your presence, loved without conditions attached to the future of that love. Come to the table, not to earn your place at it, but to discover that your place was set before you arrived, and has been held for you through every season in which you stayed away. Come with the specific weight you are carrying right now, with the specific questions that do not yet have answers, and the specific fears that have not yet found resolution. You do not have to resolve them before you can be here. You can bring them with you and lay them on the table and let me address them in the presence of the warmth that belongs to this place. There is one more thing I want to say to you before we close this conversation, because it is the thing I most want you to carry with you into the ordinary hours of the days ahead. into the moments when this felt nearness has faded back into the background, and the dailiness of your life has returned with its familiar weight, and the distance between this moment and that one feels like it might swallow the impact of what has passed between us here. The thing I want you to carry is not a principle or a promise in the abstract. It is a simple, concrete, practical fact. I will be there. In the moment you are walking toward that you cannot yet see clearly, and that still carries more uncertainty than comfort. I will be there. In the conversation you have been postponing because the fear of how it might go has been louder than the certainty that it needs to happen. I will be there. In the waiting room of a situation that has not yet resolved itself, where the silence of no answer yet has started to feel like the answer itself, I will be there. In the household dynamics that have not yet shifted into the shape that your prayers have been requesting, in the relationships that are still in the middle of their story, with no clear indication of where the story is going, in the moments when your own heart is the most confusing terrain you are navigating, I will be there. Not watching from a safe distance, not monitoring the situation from a position of uninvolved observation, present in the way that makes a difference to the person who is in it. The way a companion is present on a difficult road, not solving every problem, but making the road bearable by the quality of their company. Not removing every obstacle, but making you believe as you face each one that you are not facing it alone. That is the quality of my presence that I am committing to you as you walk out of this conversation and into whatever comes next. The love that has been speaking to you in these words does not stay behind when you close them. It is not confined to the moments when you are actively listening for it. It travels with you. It is woven into the structure of who you are and who I am, and the relationship between us that has been real since before either of those things were fully visible to you. Your life is not finished with you. I am not finished with you. The chapters ahead of you were not simply a slower continuation of the difficult chapters behind you. Something is shifting in the narrative of your days. Something I have been orchestrating through arrangements both visible and invisible. Something that is closer to emerging into your experience than the difficulty of the recent stretch has allowed you to believe. The preparation has been thorough. The timing has been careful. The love behind every element of what is approaching has been the same love that has been driving everything all along. The love that claimed you before you claimed it. The love that held you in the seasons when you were not holding on to anything. The love that sees you completely and chooses you unconditionally, not in spite of everything it knows about you, but with full knowledge of everything that knowledge includes. You are loved before you ever learn to ask. You are loved now in the middle of all the unfinished and unresolved and uncertain. You will be loved on the other side of this season, when the evidence has caught up with what has been true all along. The love is not contingent on the trajectory. It is the ground on which all trajectories stand. And because it is the ground, it cannot be shifted by anything that happens above it. Come home to that ground. Sink your roots into it until they reach a depth where no storm that moves through the surface of your life can pull them free. This is where you belong. This is what you were made for. The nearness, the warmth, the specific and eternal knowing of a God who set your place at the table long before you arrived and has never once considered removing it. Rest here, not because everything is already resolved, because rest does not require resolution. It requires trust and trust begins with a simple decision to believe, even against all the evidence your circumstances seem to be presenting, that the one who made you and loves you and has been moving toward you your entire life knows what they are doing with yours. That decision, made again right now, in this specific moment, with all its specific weight, is the beginning of everything that is coming. It is the first step back into the house that has always been home. Amen.